RBA Governor Philip Lowe has surprised a Senate committee, revealing his solution to the nation's rental crisis: for more people to move back in with mum and dad or friends, or just stay there if they're already doing that.
So I've got a lot of people coming into the country.
A lot of people
wanting to live alone or kind of not move out of home, and it just doesn't. It doesn't work.
Higher rents
do lead people to economise on housing, don't they? Kids don't move out of home because the rent's too expensive, or you decide to get a flatmate or a housemate because it's so. That's the price mechanism at work.
So let's go back to Canberra now. Joining us live, Independent MP and member for Wentworth, Allegra Spender. Allegra, good to see you. Thanks for your time. So was Governor Lowe tone deaf, as some have claimed, or is he correct on something that's not even that new?
Look, I think that, a lot of people are incredibly frustrated with the situation right now and really high rents. And so being told, that you need to move in with other people, or you can't exercise the choices you want, is really harsh and feels tone deaf. But the truth is that we have a long-term housing crisis. And this has been a car crash, basically a slow motion car crash for the last, 2 decades of failed policy in relation to housing. And I'm afraid I don't think there are any quick fixes on this one. We actually just really need to get on with supply and go much further and faster than the government is currently proposing.
Okay, so in your electorate of Wentworth, it's got some of the highest priced homes in the country. It's out of reach for most folks, but how do you relate what's going on or what's being said by Governor Lowe to what's happening in your electorate?
Look, it's my electorate where we have some of the really high, we have a lot of, expensive homes, but we actually have a lot of apartments. So over 60% of Wentworth is in apartments. So most of Wentworth actually lives pretty close together, pretty densely. And that's, works in that sense. So, and there are a lot of people in Wentworth who are really struggling in the cost of housing, both in terms of mortgages, but also in terms of rentals.
Yeah.
So it's true across the country, and it's true in Wentworth, absolutely.
So if you need more supply, and this is being touted as one of the major fixes, but how do you increase supply when there's no more land left to build on, which is the case in some electorates?
In places. That's exactly right. Look, and this is about, I think it is about reviewing zoning and about how do you increase sort of appropriate increasing density, in certain areas. And, Wentworth is already one of the densest electorates in the country, but we will continue to become denser as, have more, more housings, because I think, for my kids, I want them to be able to live near me when they grow up. And if we don't, continue to build, then we won't have places that our kids can live. But I think this is the conversation we do need to have as a country, which is that we are going to have to, accept that we get more dense, even in places, like Wentworth, which is already pretty dense. But you've got to do it carefully, you've got to do it thoughtfully. And the government, all levels of government really need to get on board with this. And I think, the federal government is doing the right thing in getting the states and local councils and engage on this. But I think they need to move harder and faster. And frankly, I think they need to use, strong sort of fiscal incentives to get the states moving on this.
Is migration too high?
Look, migration is really important part of this country and is going through a big catch-up. But I share people's concerns that, we've got high migration, which actually is really good for Australia in general, but not when we don't have enough housing. And I think, I think it is fair to say, well, are there any on the migration levers you could pull? I think certainly there are some, student visas, for example, where the students are not really, getting great degrees or, great courses. Maybe there's some tweaks there, maybe some tweaks in the working holiday visas. But, remembering that if you pull too hard on any of those levers, what you're going to end up with is the universities going through a really difficult time, or our tourism operators too. So this has got to be pretty fine how you deal with it. And I think, really focusing on supply is where the government should be right now.
Allegra Spender, good to see you. Talk to you soon.